Hello friends and welcome back for another Heffy Doodle video. This is Cassie. Let's jump right into what we're using and then we'll talk about what we're using it for. So we have the Utterly Fabulous stamps and dies. We also have the alcohol marker friendly cardstock and two different stencils. We have the wonderful Windows Masquerade and lots of Happy. So I've got my piece of cardstock. This measures the full front of an A2 size card, so that is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inches. I'm going to tack that down to my glass mat using some Heffy tape, and then I'm going to take that wonderful Windows Masquerade and stick that over the top. There are lines on it to make it super easy to make sure that you have it nice and centered for different sizes of cards, and so I'll take that Heffy tape and stick it down on the side, and then I am going to mask off some pieces because I want to make each one of those a different color. I'm going to take my lots of Happy stencil and make that into a hinge so that I can easily put it back and forth where I need it. So I'm starting off with this first color, and this is Festive Berries Distress ink, just regular distress ink. I put that down pretty lightly, and then I flip over the lots of Happy and then go a little bit darker so that we've got those two colors in there. Now, the reason I'm going to do rainbow is, well, because I love rainbow, and also because the new Heffy Doodle June challenge is Radiant Rainbows. So we are going to be making a radiant rainbow, and there are lots of fun ways to do rainbows on cards. I'm just showing you this one. I'm not sure if the challenge is open quite yet, but this way you guys can get your ideas forming in your head, and then you can get that card started so that you can get it entered into the challenge on Facebook. And I will have a link to the Heffy Doodlers page linked down below. I like to do this every month so that you guys have some ideas and you can start thinking ahead. So the second color, the orange that I used, is Carved Pumpkin. The yellow was Mustard Seed. We're going to move on to some Crushed Olive. And once again, we're just going very lightly. Flip over our stencil and then just stick that color down. The one thing you do need to be a little bit careful of, because I'm just doing the hinge here, is I'm not cleaning that stencil in between. So whatever color was up above or to the side, you could drag into what you're stenciling, so just be very careful and mindful of that. So orange and green don't necessarily go well together, so I was trying to be very mindful of how those two, if I mixed it in with that orange a little bit, it would come in a little brown. And the same sort of thing with the green and this purple that I'm going to be using, which is the Wilted Violet. That blue was Mermaid Lagoon, but again, just be mindful of your colors and trying to be a little bit careful about not dragging the color from the previous, you know, the square above into what you're just doing. All right, so then I'm going to pull away the lots of Happy stencil, and then I'll pull away our wonderful windows, and you can see how fun is that? This one layer, just using a couple different stencils, how you can make this beautiful background. Now I'm going to bring in our Utterly Fabulous. I'm only going to be using a couple of stamps from that stamp set, but this is definitely one of my favorites from the new release. And so I'm going to stamp onto that alcohol marker cardstock using some Memento Tuxedo Black ink, 3 of our little cows. I'm going to color 2 of them the same, well, basically all the same. 2 of them, it's just kind of, you know, flip-flopped. So what I do on this one, I'm going to do opposite on the one below him. And I'm just adding some spots. And I started off with some W6, so that's actually my mid-tone. Normally I go lightest to darkest for whatever reason with my grays. I usually go dark to light, but this time I'm going mid-tone. And then I'll bring in my dark one, which is the W8, and I'll stipple some of their hair just because it seems like it would be a little bit curly. And then I'll add where I think the shadowing would be. And then I'll go backwards with the W6 and drag that color into the drag the W8 into the W6, and then I'll bring in my lightest color, which is some W3, and I'll just blend those edges. So it just kind of lightly blends it. And then we'll do the same thing for the other 2 little guys. We'll bring in that W8, then we'll bring in our W6 just to blend that out just a little bit. It just kind of makes it so that it softens those edges a tiny bit. And the same thing with our W3 when I bring that in. It softens those edges, kind of drags that out a tiny bit. All right, then I need to bring in, I think I used E00 here. And then for the insides of their ears, I used RV52. And now we'll take our matching die and tack that down with some more Heffy tape. And we're going to use our mini die cutting machine by Heffy Doodle. You know I love this. If you watch me at all, this thing never leaves my desk because I use so many small dies. This thing is just perfect. And then so we'll do that for all 3 of our little cows. And then we need to stamp our sentiments. So I love a good pun. So this pun is, I heard it's your birthday. And I'm going to stamp that onto some sentiment stock after I used an anti-static powder tool, and then stamp that down with some juicy embossing ink. Cover that with some white embossing powder, and I'm heat setting that. Then I'll bring in my guillotine trimmer, and I'm going to trim this down, just lining that up on those grids in there. And I do trim it down a little bit more, and then we can start using some of the Heffy Doodle skinny foam tape to put that down on the back of our 2 of our little cows and our sentiment. So I'll just put that down on 3 of those elements. Our last little cow is going to go on the inside. I don't do a lot on the inside this time. I do love to I love to incorporate the outside into the inside. So for me, that's always super fun, just to add a little something. Sometimes I go a little crazy. This time it's just going to be that one little cow. So we'll get our card base ready. Our card base is going to be a piece of 5.5 by 8.5 inch cardstock, and I'm going to score that down at 4 1/4, so it will be a side folding A2 size card. And then this is where we'll take our 3rd little cow and we'll just glue him to the lower right hand side. And then we'll get our front or our panel ready to go. We'll go ahead and glue that down using that same liquid glue. And then I do have all the release paper taken off of our other 2 cows and our sentiments. We'll center that down in the middle, put this little cow there and that little cow there. And I can't stop there. I do need to embellish. So I pulled these out. And I'm just going to stick those down using my pickup stick and some glue. And I was pretty liberal putting those down, but they just add a little something, something, you know. Sometimes you just need a little something. But you could totally skip this step. And there you have a radiant rainbow. So like I said, I'll have a link down below to the Heffy Doodler Facebook page so that you can join that and join the challenge. So start thinking about little radiant rainbows that you want to make on your cards, and you can get started. If you liked this video, be sure to hit that like button and definitely consider subscribing if you haven't already done so. Thank you for all the support that you guys have given me, especially over this last month where I have been extremely busy. It is very much appreciated. I'll see you soon in another video. Bye, everybody.